by using the Express store at communitycars.com. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the IU and Neil Tire and Auto Service Radio Network.
Having low income can mean making tough choices. Choosing between paying for food or medication or a place to live is a reality for many people. Do you know someone who could use some extra help? Find out about the Supplemental Security Income Program, SSI, administered by Social Security. You could receive monthly SSI payments if your income and financial resources are low and you are 65 or older, or an adult or child with a disability or who is blind. SSI is money you can use to help pay for basic needs, like putting food on the table, keeping the lights on, paying the rent. It can mean new shoes for growing feet or help with medical needs. Call 1-800-772-1213 or visit ssa.gov/SSI to schedule an appointment or start to apply today. That's ssa.gov/SSI. This message produced by Social Security at U.S. taxpayer expense.
My name is Juanita Segura, and I was diagnosed in November of 2014 with non-small cell lung cancer. The first time I heard about biomarker testing was actually my husband. He just started researching about lung cancer.
And I found out about biomarker testing, and I'm like, why not? Let's try it.
I'm Dr. Jorge Gomez, thoracic medical oncologist at the Mount Sinai Hospital. Comprehensive biomarker testing is looking for either substances in the blood or mutations in some of the genes of the cancer cells that can help us identify special types of lung cancer that can be treated with what we call targeted therapies.
Letting my children know brought all of us a sense of hope. To give them hope that mom is going to be around to see you grow up. And I promised them that.
Ask your doctor about how comprehensive biomarker testing before treatment may help you and your doctor decide on the best treatment for you. Visit noonemiss.org for more.
A public service message from Longevity Foundation.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone.
Done.
By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm news correspondent Bob Woodruff. In 2006, a roadside bomb struck the armored vehicle I was riding in while reporting from Iraq. I sustained a life-threatening traumatic brain injury. The military term "got your six" means I have your back. And that day, our service members had mine. During my recovery, I learned firsthand the challenges facing our service members who return home with injuries. While serving, their fellow service members always had their six. Now that they're home, it is our turn. We started the Bob Woodruff Foundation to make sure that the camaraderie and support they relied on in the military carries on, and we need you. Please join us as part of the Got Your Six initiative and help us be there for impacted veteran service members and their families. They've had our backs. It's time we have theirs. Learn more at gotyoursix.org. That's gotyoursix.org, using the number 6.
Parenting is hard. Technology can make it harder. The Family Media Plan developed by the American Academy of Pediatrics helps make it easier. Go to healthychildren.org/media plan to create the media plan that's right for your family. Whether you make a full plan or just choose a few parts that matter the most to your family, healthychildren.org/media plan is an easy-to-use tool that will help your family set media priorities and create healthy digital habits in line with your family's values. You'll also get practical tips to help make the plan work. And you can come back to revise your plan as often as you need to, like at the beginning of each school year or during summer and holiday breaks. Raising kids in the age of screens is easier when you have a plan. Go to healthychildren.org/media plan and make your plan today.
Scammers often try to dupe veterans to steal the VA benefits they've earned. Scammers may try to obtain sensitive information or collect payments over the phone, offer to move assets in order to qualify for pension, insist benefits may be sent directly to a friend or caregiver, or promise to manage benefits or file a claim for you. VA will never charge you for processing a claim, and only VA can determine eligibility. To report suspicious activity, visit va.gov/OIG/hotline.
90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. Be a responsible gun owner. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
There are screening tests to catch cancer early. Visit cancer.org/getscreened.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment, and this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. We're thrilled that you're with us. I've already had a fun day starting early. I taught my Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class out at Indy Arms and had a full class and just really had a great room full of people. It was sold out, as that class tends to always be, but we had a room full of people there at Indy Arms, 2550 East 55th Street, just a block east of Keystone. And it was a lively bunch in there. They had a good time, learned a lot of questions, a lot of challenges, a lot of discussion. So we went a little bit over, but it was just a lot of fun, and we got into a lot of detail. Folks really tend to focus in on the law of self-defense. And listen, that's what I do for a living. And it's something I've been doing for a long time in terms of defending self-defense cases. And people get really interested in exactly what the rules are, what the laws are, what the court decisions say, and when you can and can't use force to defend yourself, and when you can and cannot use deadly force to defend yourself. And it's such an important discussion because there are an awful lot of people that carry a gun every day who are walking around every day, either with a license to carry handgun or now under constitutional carry, where people can, assuming they're not a prohibited possessor, where people can lawfully carry a handgun without a license in Indiana since July 1st of last year. But people are walking around and they're lawfully carrying a gun, but they don't really understand the rules on exactly when that gun can come out of the holster or when it can be pointed at someone. We have a crime in Indiana called pointing a firearm. And that's a crime. You point a firearm, and if you are not legally justified in doing so under applicable law, then you've just committed a felony and can go to jail for that. And people don't understand not only when they can point a firearm, but when they can actually pull the trigger and use deadly force. And there are very specific rules on this. And the law of self-defense, and I made this point in my class. By the way, if you were in that class, thanks for being there. Thanks for being just a really fun group. I just really had fun teaching this class today. It's 5 hours long, and it's a full 5 hours. We only take one break about midpoint, and it's full of information. But this was just a really good group, and it made it really fun to teach the class. So shout out to you. And if you want to call in, 317-239-9393 and talk about the class, talk about your experience, then please do. Because I'm sure there are people who may be interested in your opinion, but the discussion it gets very interesting. And as I mentioned, the rule of self-defense operates this way. It takes an act that can be not only a crime, but a very, very serious crime. The crime of murder in Indiana is defined as the intentional killing of a human being. And that is as serious a crime as we have. However, if it is justified, then that same act, the intentional killing of a human being, while a homicide, because that's what a homicide is, the intentional killing of a human being, there is such a thing as a justified homicide. And if you're legally justified under the law of self-defense, which includes the defense of third persons, then that justification takes what could be the most serious of crimes, the intentional killing of a human being, which can be as serious as murder or could be manslaughter, and makes it completely legal and justified. And you go home and sleep in your own bed that night. And I've defended now, I just got a new case last week. I've defended now 10 people that have taken a human life. And every single one of them were completely lawful and justified. But they may have to go through then a homicide investigation. Even someone like a hero, like Eli Dicken, the hero of the Greenwood Park Mall mass shooting. And Eli stepped up, put himself in harm's way, and with incredible, not only heroism, but marksmanship, starting from 43 yards away. I know, I lasered it. Eli showed me exactly where he started shooting. And with my laser rangefinder, I lasered it 43 yards. He started defending the lives of innocent people who were being shot in the Greenwood Park Mall. And with, like I say, incredible marksmanship and heroism, stopped that mass shooting by shooting the bad guy, making 8 out of 10 shots, starting at 43 yards away. That's unheard of under those conditions. Twice he had to stop and let screaming people go running past the muzzle of his gun across his sight picture. Had the wherewithal, had the ability to pause the shooting, raise the gun, not hurt any innocent person, and stop the threat, stop a mass shooting. With that kind of marksmanship, that kind of skill is just unbelievable. But was that the intentional killing of a human being? You put a human being in your sights of your firearm and pull the trigger, then the answer is generally yes. But not only was it legal and justified, it was heroic and saved countless, literally countless, innocent lives. And that's how the law of self-defense or defense of a third person works. But you also have to understand exactly what those rules are. And that's what we talked about for a long time in this class today. It was just a really fun discussion. And a lot of what ifs. You know, if a guy breaks in my house under this situation, guy breaks in my garage, guy breaks into my outbuilding on my farm, it just is a whole lot of discussion, a lot of what ifs and hypotheticals. And we got into all those things. And that's what just makes it a really fun class, especially when you have a really engaged group like we have this afternoon. If you have any questions on any of those issues, again, give us a call. We've always been a call-in show. The only show on WIBC that takes calls the entire duration of the show. I don't know, somebody said Home and Garden does that too. So, in fact, producer Carl is here helping out today and produced, I think, the Home and Garden show this morning. But the only show that counts and that matters that takes calls the entire duration right here on the Gun Guy Show. So give us a call, 317-239-9393. If you have any questions along those lines, what we're going to get into here, right when we get into the substance of the show, is the Supreme Court, after taking very few Second Amendment cases for a lot of years, has now taken two and is going to hear oral argument on one of them on Tuesday, and just this past Friday agreed to take another Second Amendment case. And those two cases are Raheny and Cargill. And Raheny is going to be argued on Tuesday, and we'll see a decision probably first quarter of next year, maybe into the summer. And Cargill will probably be argued, I'd guess, in January, and probably a decision in the summer. So we're going to get two Supreme Court decisions on the Second Amendment that can fundamentally change gun rights in America. We've seen it before. It's all been positive to a very large degree, starting in 2008. And again in 2010, and then just last year, another Supreme Court decision. We'll talk about all those decisions, and we'll talk about what we expect coming out of those new cases, because when the Supreme Court rules on a Second Amendment case, it changes our rights. It fundamentally changes our rights. Whether it was the Heller decision in 2008, McDonald in 2010, or the Bruin case just last summer. It changes our rights across the board, and that's why we have to be very cognizant of it and understand what the issues are, and we'll go into that when we come back. Right now, we're taking a break. Give us a call, 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. We're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
Federal Communications Commission, certain words that we are not allowed to broadcast.
Well, we warned someone about their behavior recently, and they didn't listen to us.
If this were a podcast, we could play all the potty mouth we wanted to, but since it's a broadcast, we cannot. So if you want to get on the air with us, just make sure you keep your language clean, and that's all I'll say about that.
Kendall and Casey, weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. And our most popular class is our Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class. And we had one of those today. We're having another one on January 6th. How about that for a date? On Insurrection Day, quote unquote. And I definitely put that in quotes. We're having another Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Indy Arms, where we taught the class today, conveniently located on the northeast side at 2550 East 55th Street. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. This class always sells out, as the class I taught today did. If you want to get in, you need to get your seats, and please do so at your earliest convenience. You can go to tactical-firearms.com and sign up right online just by clicking on upcoming courses. That's tactical-firearms.com. Click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
This is the lunch rush at your local deli. Orders are flying in. Online, on the phone, and in person.
Order for Nick.
So is it possible that fast internet could help your business outrun the rush? It is with Comcast Business. Up-leveling your speed with gig speed Wi-Fi, powering all your devices, and fast downloads and uploads, powered by the next generation 10G network. With Comcast Business, next-level speed isn't just possible, it's happening. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Get started with fast speeds and advanced security for $49 a month for 12 months with a 1-year contract. Plus, ask how to get a $600 prepaid card with a qualifying gig bundle. Call or go online to learn more. Ends 11/12/2023. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and autopay. New 100 megabits per second internet and security edge customers only. Equipment, taxes, and other fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply. Gig Wi-Fi requires gig speed and compatible router.
Some days, my active psoriatic arthritis makes it hard to get in the game. Now, the ball is in my court, thanks to treating my skin and joints with Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults.
Nothing is everything.
Skyrizi helps with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue. For those who also have plaque psoriasis, 90% clearer skin is possible with just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, there's nothing like clearer skin and better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi and visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Fox News, I'm Ann Carrick. Anti-Semitism on the rise, especially on college campuses.
My friends have been spat on. They have been laughed at for having family members lost in Israel, and their professors remain silent. The ZBT frat house, there were students who came up and started trying to strike brothers with flagpoles.
Sabrina Sofer, a George Washington University student on Fox News Live. Israel's prime minister rejecting calls for ceasefires until hostages are free.
I'm supportive of a humanitarian pause to get needed food, water, medical supplies into Gaza. We want to minimize innocent civilian deaths happening, but we're going to stand with Israel. I mean, they're our ally, they're our friend. Israel has a right to defend itself.
California Congressman Amy Barra, also on Fox News Live. America's listening to Fox News.
Hey, it's Hammer and Nigel for Window Nation. The temperatures are dropping rapidly and energy costs are on the rise. If you have old, drafty windows, your furnace is working harder than ever to keep your family warm. Why pay unnecessarily high energy bills when Window Nation can help keep you and your family warm all season long, all while lowering your monthly energy costs by up to 30%.
And this month only, Window Nation is offering 0% interest for 5 years. That's 60 months interest free. And get 2 free windows with every 2 that you buy. Now is the time to protect your family from the elements, lower your energy costs, and upgrade the look and feel of your home. Get 0% interest for 5 years. Plus, 2 free windows with every 2 that you buy. Offer only good this month. Call Window Nation right now. 866-90-NATION or go to windownation.com. That's 866-90-NATION, windownation.com. Tell them Hammer and Nigel sent you.
I'm Dwight Freeney, and my friend Eli is alive today thanks to someone who said yes to organ donation. When Eli was just 12 years old, he received a liver transplant that saved his life because someone just like you said yes to being an organ donor. His story and many others like his are why I have teamed up with Indiana Donor Network and Donate Life Indiana to help end the wait for life-saving organs. You can help. Say yes to being an organ donor next time you are at the BMV.
Guy Relford here. Time again for the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show this coming weekend at the State Fairgrounds, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's never been a more important time to exercise our rights as true Americans. It's the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show. See the best in sporting, hunting, and personal protection gear, plus great displays of Americana. Come see us this weekend at the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show, Friday 2 to 7, Saturday 9 to 6, and Sunday 9 to 4. It's the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show. See you there.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. We're glad you're with us. So what are these 2 cases that the Supreme Court has accepted? So we're going to see argument. Again, oral argument in the Raheny case is this Tuesday. Only a couple of days away. And then the Cargill case has also been accepted. So what is at issue in these 2 cases? I'll tell you, this Raheny case, and I have mentioned this before, is a little bit scary to me. It's a little scary to me because it involves a very bad guy. That is Raheny. And he's a very bad guy on a number of different levels. He's reportedly a drug dealer, reportedly has committed several violent crimes, and reportedly has assaulted women on multiple occasions, involving multiple women. So he's not a sympathetic character, and he's not a guy that I would ever choose and say, wow, that's the litigant, that's the party that I want representing the 2A on an important case that's going up to the Supreme Court. And this is a guy who, if he lost his Second Amendment rights because he's convicted of a crime, particularly a violent crime, none of us would shed too much of a tear. So why do we care about this case? We care about the case because of the issue where we have to separate the specifics of this guy, Raheny, from a very important, I think, constitutional principle, which is, will the Supreme Court rule that you should be able to lose your Second Amendment rights, that the law should be able to strip you of your Second Amendment rights, a constitutionally protected right, when you haven't been convicted of any crime, and where the burden of proof the government has is only a preponderance of the evidence. That just basically means more likely than not. That's like 50.1% of the credible evidence supports the idea you should lose your gun rights. Again, you've not been convicted of any crime, and where the law does not even provide you the protection, the due process protection of saying that if you can't afford a lawyer, that one will be appointed for you. So it's essentially a civil proceeding, and the context here, just so you know what we're talking about, is that, and I talked about this at length in my Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class, just that I taught a few hours ago, that if you are subject to what we call a domestic violence order of protection, so it restrains you from harassing, stalking, intimidating, or trying to harm an intimate partner or a child of an intimate partner, then you've lost your gun rights. And this came into law as part of the Brady Bill in 1994. So it's really very recent. Indiana has a very similar law. So this is both a federal law, and that's what's at issue in the Raheny case. But Indiana has an almost identical law. It says if you're subject to a domestic violence order of protection, you've lost your gun rights. The problem is that it's not a criminal proceeding in the sense that the results of it are not that you go to jail. It's just that you have this order of protection issued against you. A lot of people call these restraining orders, and that's not really the accurate term. Domestic violence order of protection is really a much more accurate term. But the way this works, and I went into this in detail in my class today, is someone, and here in Indiana, for instance, in Marion County, you can go to the Marion County Clerk's page on the indy.gov website and fill out an application for a domestic violence order of protection. And if your request for the protective order meets the requirements of the statute, that is, it establishes that you're being stalked or harassed or threatened, or you legitimately fear personal injury at the hands of an intimate partner, then the court will issue what's called an ex parte order of protection. Ex parte just means the court's only heard from one side. There's been no due process at that moment in the sense that the person's had a right to a hearing, the person's received a hearing, the person's had the right to counsel, the person's had the ability to defend themselves, present evidence in their own defense, compel the production of evidence from the other side. There's been no due process. And the moment the ex parte order is issued, you've not yet lost your gun rights under state or federal law. But both the state and federal law, they both say if you had an opportunity for a hearing, that is, you didn't necessarily have to get a hearing. You just had the opportunity to have one. A lot of times once you get an ex parte order, you have a certain number of days, typically 30, where you have to ask for a hearing if you want to contest the order. If you don't ask for a hearing and there's no hearing, well, now the order becomes final. Once that final order is issued, or let's say you request a hearing, or the court just schedules a hearing, different courts do it different ways, and you show up and you lose, and the court says, no, I think there needs to be an order of protection entered. And here we're dealing with a process in Texas where it's just a civil proceeding involving a preponderance of the evidence. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. It doesn't involve getting you convicted of a crime. They've just decided that, no, you've engaged in conduct that means this order of protection ought to issue. You've now lost your Second Amendment rights. And the issue before the court is, does that violate the Second Amendment? When the burden of proof is only preponderance of the evidence, when there's no, since it's not considered a criminal proceeding, you don't get a lawyer appointed for you if you can't afford your own lawyer. There's no requirement that the state prove its case, or the person asking for the order of protection prove his or her case by a standard of beyond a reasonable doubt, like in a criminal case. So without all those due process protections, you've lost your Second Amendment rights. And listen, do I think that should be the law? No, I don't. I think it should be a beyond a reasonable doubt standard. I think you should have a lawyer appointed for you if you can't afford one. I think we ought to dramatically increase the due process protections that go into this process. None of that means that I'm arguing that there's not an incredible problem with domestic violence in this country. Listen, my mom's been the victim of domestic violence, certainly not by my dad, but long after my parents were divorced, Mom was horribly abused. And I had a real hard time with that. Would I have a problem with that person losing his Second Amendment rights? Well, not given that particular person, but I have a problem with the process that doesn't afford basic due process as it does in criminal cases. And with someone losing their Second Amendment rights, they haven't had all those protections. And when the burden of proof is so much dramatically lower than a criminal case. And that's what the Supreme Court is going to decide. It's going to do it in the context of this particular guy, Raheny, being a very bad guy by all reports. Again, assaulted multiple women, had protective orders issued as to multiple women, and committed several different gun crimes reportedly, but he didn't lose his gun rights because he'd been convicted of a crime. He lost his gun rights only because of this domestic violence order of protection. So the Supreme Court's going to have to be able to separate the fact that Raheny is not a sympathetic guy, and nobody's going to look at this individual and say, wow, that's a dude that I really care about, and a guy I really care about whether he retains his Second Amendment rights or not. But that's dramatically different than not caring about the process by which he lost his Second Amendment rights. And the Supreme Court's also going to decide this under the test that was created in the Bruin case that just got handed down last summer. It's a new test. And I said when that case came down, how dramatically it was going to change Second Amendment litigation in this country and the determination of whether a law is constitutional or not. And while we're a little late going into this break, we're going to take a break. We come back, I'll explain how the new test works and how that stacks up in the Raheny case in terms of whether I would expect Raheny to win or lose that case. Again, not because he's a good guy, not because he's a sympathetic party in a lawsuit, but because under the Supreme Court's newly announced test, announced just last summer in the Bruin case, I don't see how the government wins that case. I think there are Supreme Court justices who were going to try to lean that direction because Raheny's such a lousy, miserable guy. But if you apply the strict rule of law as announced in the Bruin case, I don't see a path forward for the government winning the case. I think Raheny wins the case. And I'll go into more detail on that and take your calls, 317-239-9393. When we come back, this is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
93 WIBC remembers Coach Bob Knight.
In 1972, he came to Indiana.
We're going to play basketball my way.
Knight stresses the fundamentals.
Because we're just not tough enough in the way we're playing.
General Robert Montgomery Knight.
Well, I'm sure I'm a lot tougher to play for than a lot of guys.
When my time on earth is gone,
I'm going to demand that you go to class.
And my activities here are past.
There's Bobby Knight moving on into history.
I want they bury me upside down and my critics can kiss my...
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. As I often say, our most popular class is our Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class, and we've got another one of those coming up Saturday, January 6th. I just taught this class today to a sold-out class at Indy Arms, and I fully expect this next class to sell out as well, so get your seat early. You can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. We'd love to see you there. You can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Again, just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
When you hear the name Jefferson Shreve, what do you think of? A candidate for mayor? Sure, he's that. But he's also an original supporter of Donald Trump. Jefferson Shreve has been with Trump from the very beginning, even despite Trump lying over 30,000 times, being accused of sexually assaulting 21 women. And Jefferson Shreve never condemned January 6th. Shreve even donated thousands of dollars to Trump's election deniers. It's bad enough that Jefferson Shreve got an A rating from the NRA and wants to ban abortion. But Jefferson Shreve and Donald Trump? That's a combination that's bad for Indianapolis.
This is Joe Hogshead, and I'm asking for your vote so we can continue hiring more police, get guns off the street, and invest in programs that keep kids out of trouble. We've overcome a lot in these last few years. I'm grateful for your support so we can get the job done.
Paid for by Hogshead for Indianapolis.
Everyone's talking about Galaxy Concrete Coatings and their transformation, like your neighbor Brett.
We did Galaxy for the sidewalks and also the porch. The porch had a few pits. Galaxy said that was no problem.
Home or business, Galaxy Concrete Coatings got you covered.
Obviously with the front sidewalk and step, so we didn't worry about any kind of slipping. You know, you're concerned about that after rain. And then when it did dry, it didn't spot, it didn't stain. It was just like it had been done yesterday.
Lots of styles to choose from. 4 times stronger than epoxy and a 15-year warranty.
It's one thing that my wife commented on was how easy the Galaxy coating swept versus just the bare concrete.
Click on GalaxyConcreteCoatings.com now. That's Galaxy Concrete Coatings. And remember to like us on Facebook. Galaxy Concrete Coatings. We're out of this world.
We moved here recently. I didn't even think twice about calling anyone else but Galaxy to come do this house.
AE Ammo is Greenwood's ammunition superstore. The largest variety in training, hunting, and self-defense ammo with the best prices locally guaranteed. Factory new 9mm FMJ ammo starting at $12 per 50-round box. Factory new 50-round boxes, $380 from $14.99 and $45 ACP from $18.99. And with the AE Ammo Customer Rewards Program, start earning points today towards money back to use on future purchases. Shop in-store or online at aeammo.com.
Rhino Shield's 25% off special has been extended through November. Plus, receive a free TV up to 75 inches just by having your job done by spring of 24.
Audible has the best stories of the year with an unbeatable selection of audiobooks, podcasts, and more. Ignite your imagination with a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hey, we're pretty social people at WIBC. You can find us all over social media. See what we're up to on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube. We're never more than just away. Just search for 93 WIBC. Show about gun rights, gun safety, and responsible gun ownership. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So before that break, I mentioned that the Supreme Court really changed the test for determining whether a law is constitutional under the Second Amendment or not when it made its ruling in the Bruin case just last summer, in Bruin versus New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. And what it said is that it was adopting what's called the text, history, and tradition test. So what does that mean? It means we first look at the text of the Second Amendment and determine what it is it means and what it covers. And we got a lot of help on that in 2008 when the Heller decision was issued by the Supreme Court. That talked about, well, yes, there is an individual right to bear arms that's covered in the Second Amendment. It's not dependent on service in any organized military unit, despite the argument that the opening phrase of the Second Amendment saying a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. A lot of people then argued, and in fact 4 justices of the Supreme Court agreed, that unless you're in an organized military unit like the National Guard, you didn't get any protection from the Second Amendment. Thankfully, 5 justices and a majority ruled that that was nonsense. The militia referred to everybody, to the common citizens of the country who could be summoned up to participate in a militia. And you had a natural and individual right to bear arms that existed separate and apart from service in a military unit. It also ruled in that case that those arms lawfully used, commonly used, I should say, for lawful purposes in the U.S. are covered in terms of your possession of them or ability to carry them is protected by the Second Amendment. So in terms of what the Second Amendment covers, the scope of it, we got a lot of help in the Heller decision in 2008. Then in Bruin, they said, all right, first look at the text. And if you can't specifically determine whether a law is constitutional or unconstitutional based on the text, you look at history and tradition, and specifically you look where there are similar laws in effect at the time of the ratification of the Second Amendment, which is 1791, or at the time of the ratification of the 14th Amendment, that basically said that the Bill of Rights, including the Second Amendment, applies to the states. And unless there's a lot of similar law or that similar laws have been upheld as of those two dates, then the law isn't constitutional. The law we're talking about here with domestic violence orders of protection was passed in 1994. That's a big challenge for the government. That's why I don't expect it to stand, notwithstanding the fact that Rahini's not a good guy. In the meantime, we're at the top of the hour. It's time to take a break. We'll be right back. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
This is the lunch rush at your local deli. Orders are flying in. Online, on the phone, and in person.
Order for Nick.
So is it possible that fast internet could help your business outrun the rush? It is with Comcast Business. Up-leveling your speed with gig speed Wi-Fi, powering all your devices, and fast downloads and uploads, powered by the next generation 10G network. With Comcast Business, next level speed isn't just possible, it's happening. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Get started with fast speeds and advanced security for $49 a month for 12 months with a 1-year contract. Plus, ask how to get a $600 prepaid card with a qualifying gig bundle. Call or go online to learn more. Ends 11/12/2023. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and autopay. New 100 megabits per second internet and security edge customers only. Equipment, taxes, and other fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply. Gig Wi-Fi requires gig speed and compatible router.
JMV here from Miss M's Home and Garden in Bargersville. Right now at Miss M's, get 50% off all fall decor, including mums. Save the date for the Miss M's Holiday Open House that's coming quickly, Saturday and Sunday, November the 18th and 19th. Stop in to see Miss M's Garden Shop and all the beautiful merchandise, including their lake house section. Miss M's Home and Garden on State Road 135, just south of Whiteland Road. MissM'sHomeandGarden.com. That's MissM'sHomeandGarden.com. Tell them JMV sent you.
This season, it's all about energy. That energy inside you that tells you to push beyond expectations and take control of the future.
Or a driving right side, right baseline, two-hand slam.
The Indiana Pacers are revved up for this season and ready to show the world what they're about.
Halliburton will have to hurry. A long three is good.
It's a Saturday night showdown when your Pacers host the Charlotte Hornets. Get revved up Saturday at 7. Buy your tickets at Pacers.com. Pacers Hornets, Saturday at 7.
I'm attorney Darryl Isaacs. Winning for my clients is so important to me because I know what they're going through. I was in a wreck myself back in 2015. I've been there, and I'll be there for you. Just click to get help quick at WeWin.com.
A girl in Kenya dreams of becoming a doctor. An elder in Guatemala dreams of becoming part of a community. Reach out and change their world, and it will change your own. Unbound.org.
Beat the holiday cleaning rush with Zerorez. Get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at $139. Call 388-5141 or book online at ZerorezIndy.com.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now's the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Broadcasting from the Peterman Brothers Heating, Plumbing, and Electrical Studios, this is Indy's Mobile News, 93 WIBC, WIBC HD1 Indianapolis. The news starts now.
For peace or pause in the Mideast from several world leaders, I'm Ann Carrick, Fox News. Israel saying no ceasefire until hostages are freed. More from Fox's Mike Tobin. In Sderot.
We started getting alerts that the town of Eilat was the target. And Eilat is the far southern end of Israel. And it's usually not the targets from the Gaza rockets. It has been the target of some of the rockets fired from Yemen that came up the Red Sea. So that was unique. Israeli aircraft are firing here in the northeast corner of the Gaza Strip, where a fight has been going on for about 3 days in Bet Hanun. And that is really the fringes of where the fighting has been taking place. The really intense fighting is now shaping up in the center of Gaza City, where Israeli forces have the population center surrounded, if you will. And we've got a report coming out of Hamas claiming to have damaged a couple of Israeli armored vehicles.
$14.3 billion in federal aid dollars for Israel passed the House with some spending cuts. It's headed to the Senate next. The White House plans to veto. Russia not talking ceasefire, instead looking to strengthen its relationship with Hamas.
Russia invited Hamas leaders to Moscow, infuriating Israel, while at the same time, Russia has been helping Hamas avoid Western and U.S. sanctions by funneling millions of dollars of Hamas money through Russian cryptocurrency exchanges. We also know that Russian weapons were used by Hamas in those terror attacks on October the 7th. And Ukraine says that Russia is and actively arming Hamas. And at no point has Russia ever condemned the Hamas attacks as terrorism. Instead, they have been condemning the Israeli bombardments, with Putin saying Israel are the ones now acting like Nazis. Inside Russia, we've also been seeing growing scenes of anti-Semitism.
Fox's Benjamin Hall reporting. America's listening to Fox News.
I'm Dana Perino, co-host of The Five and co-anchor of America's Newsroom. Join me for my brand new podcast, Perino on Politics. Listeners of Everything Will Be Okay will gravitate toward this podcast too. Every Monday, I'm going to talk to people I trust in politics as they tell me what they're seeing and thinking in the 2024 election cycle. As they prep me to cover the upcoming election, they'll prep you, the voters, too. Make sure you subscribe to this series on foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts, and leave a rating and review.
Well, they say there are certain things that shouldn't be brought up at the kitchen table, but not here at the Duffys. So pull up a chair and join me, Rachel Campos Duffy.
And me, former U.S. Congressman Sean Duffy, as we share our perspective on the discussions happening at kitchen tables across America.
And we're going to share some real-life solutions as well to the everyday issues that you all talk about. And we're going to talk about some of those things that we agree on.
And some that we don't.
Download from the kitchen table, the Duffys at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Top law firms are taking a
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Funding public safety. I'm Sasha Nixon. Here's what's trending this hour. You hear a lot of talk about public safety programs and how they can make your neighborhood better. Donnie Burgess reports those programs cost a lot of money.
From Washington, D.C. to the Hoosier State, $6 million is on the way as part of the comprehensive strategy for reducing violent crime instituted by Attorney General Merrick Garland. What that means is Indiana's receiving all that money to help fund state and local public safety programs. That can be anything from U.S. attorneys who help convict violent criminals or hiring more police. Part of that $6 million will also go towards security improvements in schools. Donnie Burgess, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
And you may have planned on voting early, but don't know where to do so. Sam Fritz has the information you need to cast a ballot ahead of Election Day.
A total of 8 satellite sites will be open to early Marion County voters on Saturday and Sunday. The Decatur, Franklin, Perry, and Warren Township government centers are some of the locations where Hoosiers can go to cast their ballot from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. over the weekend. On Monday, only the Marion County Clerk's office will be open to early voting from 8 a.m. to noon. For the full list of both early and Election Day voting locations, visit vote.indy.gov. Sam Fritz, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
Daylight saving time ends Sunday, so make sure you fall back and take advantage of an extra hour in bed. On the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com. Now here's the forecast from the American Standard Heating Weather Center.
Wind will quiet down for tonight, allowing for some areas of patchy early morning fog. Sunday, we're starting with some of those areas of patchy morning fog, mostly sunny afternoon. I'm Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse for 93 WIBC.
While high school sports help students develop their athletic skills, the real lessons in this second classroom are the skills needed for life. I'm Brian Lewis.
And I'm Carrie Rosati. We're both assistant commissioners of the IHSAA. In high school sports, student athletes aren't just running drills. They're learning discipline and work ethic.
They're not just watching film. They're learning the value of preparation and always finding ways to improve.
They're not just hitting the weight room. They're learning the importance of pushing through any challenges that come their way.
These aren't just some of the skills student athletes need to navigate the game. These are the skills they need to navigate life, to be successful people, to be good humans.
You can ensure these life lessons are taught for generations to come. Be a champion of high school sports and buy a ticket to your high school's athletic events.
This is preparing for the game. This is preparing for life. This is your IHSAA.
A girl in Kenya dreams of becoming a doctor. An elder in Guatemala dreams of becoming part of a community. Reach out and change their world, and it will change your own. Unbound.org.
When you're high, you feel different. But if you feel different, you drive different. So don't drive high. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment. And this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back to hour number 2 of the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. I'm thrilled you're with us. Again, it's been a full day for me. I was up early and at Indy Arms starting at 9 a.m. to start my Indiana gun law class. Had a lively group, a lot of questions, a lot of challenges. We had a good time, but folks learned an awful lot. And one thing that did not come up in that class today, but I always, about this time of year, I always get a question. And in this case, I've gotten multiple questions, mainly on social media. By the way, give me a follow on Twitter. I'm just at Guy Relford. Or on Facebook, it's Guy A. Relford. And also have a Facebook Gun Guy page, Gun Guy WIBC. But on Twitter, I'm just on there at Guy Relford and would love to have you follow me. And I get into some of these issues a little bit on social media, including on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it these days. But I've had several people contact me and say, Guy, we've got an election coming up. Is it legal or illegal to carry a gun in a polling place? That is, where you go to vote. And that's really a great question. And by the way, I'm going to get back into what's going on at the Supreme Court and what I expect to see out of these 2 cases now. 2 Supreme Court cases where the court has agreed to hear Second Amendment cases. And that's always exciting and a little nerve-wracking all at the same time. But I'll get into that in just a moment. In the meantime, people need to know the law in this area, and that is there is no Indiana law or federal law that says you cannot carry a gun or possess a gun in a place where you go to vote. So that's answer number 1. Does that necessarily answer the question of whether it's legal for you to carry a gun where you vote? Well, no, because you got to look at whether or not it's already illegal to carry a gun in a particular place like that. For instance, if you're polling places in a school, you can't carry a gun on school or possess a gun on school property. Now, as I did get into in a lot of detail today, there are a whole bunch of exceptions to that. You can have a gun on school property while you're in your vehicle. You can possess a gun. If you get out of your vehicle, if you leave the gun locked inside your vehicle, out of sight, it has to be out of sight, locked in your vehicle. So it can be locked in the glove compartment of a locked vehicle. It can be in the trunk of a locked vehicle, or it can be otherwise stored out of sight in a locked vehicle. You can leave that gun on school property, and it can be completely legal. It has to be out of sight. Vehicle has to be locked. You can't get out of the vehicle with a gun in your possession, unless, and there are certain exceptions, unless you're a law enforcement officer, unless you're authorized by the school board to possess a gun on school property. that is you specifically, individually, are authorized by the school board to possess a gun on school property. And that has happened in mainly rural areas around Indiana, where some people who are former military, maybe ex-cops or instructors, I've talked to a couple of people like that, where their school board has said, yeah, you can have a gun on school property, and given them written authorization, then that's legal. But outside of that, you can't have a gun on school property. So if your polling place is in a school, can you carry your gun into the polling place? No, not because it's a polling place, but because it's a school. If it's otherwise legal to have a gun where you vote, you can still carry a gun while you vote. And in fact, I had to, along with my client, a gentleman named Clay Ettinger, I was very proud to represent him, a former Marine who then re-enlisted, went into the Navy, became a chaplain in the Navy. This is just an all-around great guy, and it was a pleasure to represent him. But Clay was up in South Bend, and he went in to vote, and he was voting at a volunteer fire station. And he was openly carrying his handgun. Just recently had gotten out on leave from the Marines. So you've got a United States Marine who's going in to vote, and he's carrying his handgun in the fire station. And you had a guy who was both an assistant chief of the fire department and was also, I believe, a reserve police officer. And he sees that Clay's carrying a gun and said, you can't bring that gun in here and vote. And Clay said, well, yeah, I can. There's no law against it. And this guy, who is either not particularly bright or doesn't care much for your Second Amendment rights, or both, said, oh, no, you can't carry a gun in a fire station. There's no such law, not in Indiana. And Clay said, I don't think there's any such law. I think you're just making that up. The guy said, well, you can't carry a gun in a polling place. No, there's no such law in Indiana and no such federal law. The guy said, well, I'm here to tell you what the law is. I'm a police officer. You can't carry a gun in here and vote. So you either take that back to your car or you can't vote. And Clay said, I'm not going to relinquish my Second Amendment right to bear arms in order to exercise my constitutional right to vote. So I declined to relinquish one vote to exercise another. The guy said, well, you're not coming in here to vote. Clay then called me. I did everything I could to get a hold of the sheriff/police chief there in the area to say, you're breaking the law right now because we have a preemption statute. That means local governments can't restrict, where you can and can't carry a gun, with very few exceptions. It's called the Indiana Firearms Preemption Act. And so I left messages, and they kept saying, well, no, the chief's out. It's election day. He's busy. He's not going to get your message. And I said, well, let him know. He's got somebody breaking the law out at the fire station, and won't let my client vote. They were breaking the law. He wasn't. Clay was never allowed to vote. He went back right at closing time, giving me some time to try to get a hold of somebody. No one would return my calls. So he went back to vote at closing time, and they were ready for him, and they were waiting on him because he said, I'm coming back to vote, and I'm carrying my gun. And as he approached the door to go in and vote, cops were waiting for him, said, you're not coming in here to vote, not carrying a gun. Clay then got back to me, so what did? We sued him. We sued St. Joseph County, the election board, and said you violated the law, violated the Indiana Firearms Preemption Act by not allowing him to come in and vote. And St. Joseph County tried to have that lawsuit dismissed. They failed because we were right and they were wrong. No law that prevented Clay from voting. So by imposing that restriction on him, they were creating their own local restriction that didn't exist at state and federal law. That's illegal. We established that, and Clay got a nice settlement out of it. Because in a Preemption Act case, you can recover, and I did talk about this in my gun law class, you can recover as liquidated damages 3 times your attorney's fees plus your attorney's fees. That turned out to be a nice award and a nice settlement. And we used that case to educate election boards all across the state of Indiana to say, do not turn people away because they're carrying a gun when they come in to vote. They have a constitutional right to carry that gun. And there's no law against carrying a gun in a polling place. And ever since then, when I'm going in to vote, I always find one of the folks working, and these folks are usually volunteers, usually good people, trying to devote their time to helping people vote and participating in the democratic process. And part of what makes this great constitutional republic the country that it is. So I never want to beat up on these people. But I'll usually ask them, hey, have you got any education on, whether it's legal to carry a gun in here in the polling place? And they're like, oh, yeah, we got a memo. And so we were able to successfully educate people all over the state on that. So I spent more time on that than I really had intended. But just just so you know, the short answer is, unless it's already illegal for you to carry a gun in the place where you vote, because, for instance, it's a school, there's no law that says you can't carry a gun when you go in to vote. And it's very important that you know that. And it's very important that election workers know that. That's why I want to mention it on the air here, going into an election here coming up next week. So in the meantime, we're at the quarter hour, we're taking a break. We'll come back and get back into these Supreme Court cases. I just had Bonnie ask me a question on YouTube. Yeah, you can actually see a video. As I always say, I'm not much to look at, but if you want to see a video broadcast of the show at the same time you're listening to it, you can go on YouTube, just search for 93 WIBC, and you can see that. And we're on there. But just ask me a question about churches, and that is something I cover in my class, but it's something I'll get into when we come back, and then get back into what's going on at the Supreme Court. But right now we're taking a break. Give us a call with your comments or questions, 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. We're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
We feel...
Feel it as soon as you step out the door.
What you feel.
Bundle up. Feels like winter.
Could be more like summertime.
Do you feel like we do?
All the feels.
It feels a little like winter.
Feels more like summer.
Of fall.
It's kind of the clash of two seasons.
Weather. When you need it.
The ebbs and flows this time of the year is so evident.
On your official fall weather station. 93 WIBC.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. I've been mentioning my Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class that I just taught today out at Indy Arms. Well, we've scheduled another one of those coming up here in just a couple of months. It's going to be Saturday, January 6th, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Indy Arms Company, conveniently located on the northeast side at 2550 East 55th Street. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. This is 5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner, including a detailed discussion of the law of the justified use of force in self-defense, including the justified use of deadly force in self-defense. When are you and when you aren't not justified in using your gun? You carry a gun every day. That's by definition something you need to know. That all comes from my legal practice, and that's why people, I think, enjoy it, because I've got a lot of practical examples of exactly what we talk about when we get into each of those legal issues and a whole heck of a lot more. So you can check that out online at tactical-firearms.com. Again, it's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. We'd love to have you sign up and join that class before it sells out at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
Here's another remarkable success story from QC Kinetics. This one from Chad, who hurt his knee at the gym one day, and it just kept on hurting for months.
From my high school football and wrestling days, I already had a little bit of damage in there, but this just sent it over the edge.
Chad tried traditional treatments with no improvement when he turned to the non-surgical regenerative treatments at QC Kinetics.
It was really fascinating how they did their work, and the science behind it was very intriguing, and it works. Extracting the cure out of my own body blew my mind. It's like I'm brand new again. It was fantastic.
That's because the QC Kinetics natural biologic treatments use your body's own healing power to restore damaged tissue in your hips, shoulders, back, and knees, providing long-lasting relief.
Now I'm back at the gym. I'm 100%, feeling great.
If you're tired of suffering with pain from arthritis or injury, call QC Kinetics now for a free consultation.
Call QC Kinetics, 463-235-7160. That's 463-235-7160. In Eagle Creek and Greenwood, 463-235-7160.
When you hear the name Jefferson Shreve, what do you think of? A candidate for mayor? Sure, he's that. But he's also an original supporter of Donald Trump. Jefferson Shreve has been with Trump from the very beginning, even despite Trump lying over 30,000 times. being accused of sexually assaulting 21 women. And Jefferson Shreve never condemned January 6th. Shreve even donated thousands of dollars to Trump's election deniers. It's bad enough that Jefferson Shreve got an A rating from the NRA and wants to ban abortion. But Jefferson Shreve and Donald Trump? That's a combination that's bad for Indianapolis.
This is Joe Hogshead, and I'm asking for your vote so we can continue hiring more police, get guns off the street, and invest in programs that keep kids out of trouble. We've overcome a lot in these last few years. I'm grateful for your support so we can get the job done.
Paid for by Hogshead for Indianapolis.
Some days, my active psoriatic arthritis makes it hard to get in the game. Now, the ball is in my court, thanks to treating my skin and joints with Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults.
Nothing is everything.
Skyrizi helps with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue. For those who also have plaque psoriasis, 90% clearer skin is possible with just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, there's nothing like clearer skin and better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi and visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Life is all about enjoying the little moments. Don't miss out on them because of unexpected heart issues. At Community Health Network, you receive heart care you can trust. From simple screenings to life-saving diagnostic and interventional cardiology services, we offer it all, so you can get back to the moments that matter. Learn more about our services at ecommunity.com/heart. Community Health Network. Exceptional care simply delivered.
Together, we can provide 1 billion meals by 2030 because everyone should be welcome at the table. Learn more at nourishingneighbors.com.
The Indianapolis Public Library. More than just books. Visit your local branch today.
Your rights, your responsibilities, your guns. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. And as I mentioned, you can watch the broadcast if you want to see a video on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for 93 WIBC. I think you can also go to WIBC's Facebook page. And, producer Carl is saying not so much. We don't have that on there right now. So, yeah, you got to go to YouTube, but search for 93 WIBC, and then you'll see The Gun Guy and today's date. And you can watch a video broadcast. But there's also a chat feature, and people can ask questions. Bonnie just asked me about churches. That is it legal to carry a gun in a church? Well, listen, that law has changed very recently, and I was directly involved in this, along with some great pro-Second Amendment legislators that we have in Indiana, principally Representative Ben Smaltz, who was really a driving force behind that. The late Jack Sandlin. We just lost Senator Jack Sandlin just in the last few weeks. And I was devastated to hear that Senator Sandlin had died. I've worked with him for a long time, but he first authored the bill in the Senate that I'm going to talk about, and then it took another couple of sessions, another couple of laws, and an awful lot of argument, an awful lot of huge number of hearings, and a lot of us fighting for this. But Ben Smaltz reintroduced this, and what it is there's never been a law in Indiana that says it's illegal to carry a gun in a church. At least not in my lifetime, and I'm damn old. So it's not a law that says you can't carry a gun in a church. So does that mean it's always been legal to carry a gun in church? Well, not so much. And the reason is because you can't carry a gun on school property. And school property is defined as including any property that's on the same land or co-owned or in the same building with a school. So if there's a church and a school on the same piece of land, the same piece of property, then the church is considered school property, and you can't carry a gun on school property. You can leave it in your vehicle, but you can't take it out of your vehicle on school property. And how many, for instance, Catholic churches have a parochial school right there on the same property? Well, pretty much all of them. I don't know. I'm a Methodist, not a Catholic, so maybe someone will correct me on that. And if there's a school in the same building or on the same property that's co-owned with the church, then the church is school property, and you can't carry a gun on school property. So that's problematic for a lot of years because, say, a church on one side of the street has no school on the same property. It's totally legal for me to carry my gun there and protect my family while we're at church. And oh, by the way, is it important to be able to protect your family while you're at church? Well, how many churches have been the target of mass shootings? Either because someone is some kind of religious zealot who wants to kill you just simply because of the way you worship, or someone's just nuts and wants to come to your church and murder you because they're a lunatic, or some combination thereof. We've seen a number of mass shootings in churches. Now we've seen heroes emerge out of church shootings. A guy named Jack Wilson in White Settlement, Texas. Guy comes into a church with a shotgun, intent on killing as many people as he can, shoots and kills, I believe, 2 people. And then Jack Wilson, from like 50 feet away, having to shoot over worshipers in church, he was a part of a voluntary church security team, takes one shot, makes a headshot from all the way across the sanctuary, and ends the threat. And who knows how many people would have been killed in that situation. And we've seen other examples as well, including in Sutherland Springs, Texas. Again, we're a hero now. There were 20-some people killed in that church because it was a gun-free zone at the time, which goes right to the point we're discussing. But after the person is finishing up his shooting, he goes to leave, and a person who lived right across the street from the church is hearing the shooting, grabs his rifle, comes out and engages the bad guy, actually chases the bad guy, ends up killing the bad guy. And who knows how many more people that guy would have killed. Now he killed 20-some people in the church because people are sitting there defenseless, which goes right to the law we're talking about. So, yes, there is a need to defend yourself in church. Hell, when I go to church, not only do I take a gun, I take an extra magazine. Simply because I'm going to church, and I know churches are targets. And I want to be able to protect my family, first and foremost, and myself. So, in 2019, in a bill principally authored by Representative Ben Smalls from Auburn, Indiana, we passed a law that said even if you're on school property, you can carry a gun while attending a worship service or a religious ceremony in a house of worship. So if that's your church or your synagogue or your mosque or your temple or whatever the house of worship might be, notwithstanding the fact that there's a school on the same land or co-owned there with that church, it's legal for you to carry a gun in the church, that is the house of worship, while attending a religious ceremony or a worship service. You can also carry a gun while performing your official duties as either a volunteer or an employee of the house of worship. So if you're part of that church security team, you can carry a gun in church, notwithstanding the fact that there's a school on the same property. And that was a huge change because there were thousands of churches, I'm not exaggerating, thousands of churches where it was illegal to carry a gun in Indiana until we passed that law because they were on the same property with a school or had a school in the same building. By the way, this also applies to licensed daycares, and a lot of churches have daycare in the same building or on the same property with the church, although there's a separate process for being allowed to have a daycare in a church where they don't have to be licensed necessarily by the state, and it's only state licensed daycares where you can't possess a firearm if there's one in the same building. But again, whether school or a daycare, If you're attending a worship service or a religious ceremony, or you're performing your official duties as a volunteer or an employee of the house of worship, you can carry a gun now in church in Indiana, and that's since 2019. I was directly involved in that. I testified for that a whole bunch of times. And let me tell you, one thing that really stuck with me is while we were fighting over that, and we were in, I was offering testimony in the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, and we had people from some churches and a couple of synagogues who came in, and these were people like completely respected. They were very well spoken, very educated people. And I didn't agree with them on the issue, but they came in and they said, listen, members of our church or our synagogue have met and we've discussed it. We've prayed on it, and we don't want guns in our church or in our synagogue. And if you pass this law, we'll have to accept guns in our church and our synagogue. And that's absolutely not true. It's not accurate. They absolutely believed it. They weren't fabricating that. They just didn't understand the law, because what the law did is it decriminalized having a gun in a church if you're attending a worship service or a religious ceremony, or again, if you're performing your functions as a volunteer or an employee. But it doesn't mandate that house of worship accept firearms or allow firearms. And they can have whatever policy they want. And we actually built that right into the statute, because I respect property rights the same way I respect Second Amendment rights. And if you're running your own church or your own business, you ought to be able to have whatever policy you want. Now, I may choose to not worship there if you don't allow firearms. You don't allow me to defend my family while I'm in your church. Okay, I'll find a different church. But you ought to have the right to do that because it's your church. And people can decide whether they want to continue to worship there or not. It's the same way with your business. Now, again, a business goes no firearms. They don't respect my Second Amendment rights. They don't respect my ability to defend my family and my life. All right, I may decide to not go in that business. But they ought to have the right to have whatever policy they want. I've never agreed. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. I'm a cigar smoker. I'm a bit of a cigar snob. I only smoke nice cigars because there's a huge difference. But I think a business ought to have a right to have whatever policy it wants. If it doesn't want to allow cigars, or if it wants to allow cigarettes, or whatever the hell policy it wants, their business. Especially bars. Government shouldn't tell them. Somebody says, well, it's secondhand smoke. Great. Don't go there. Well, I'm worried about their employees. Great. Don't work there. Work in a different bar that doesn't allow smoking. Don't tell a business how to run their own private business. And so I respect that with business. I respect it with churches. So we put it right in the statute that a church, synagogue, whatever the house of worship is, can have whatever policy they want. Now, it's no longer a crime if you carry there, if you're attending, again, worship service, religious ceremony. But if they see you carrying a gun, they can say, excuse me, we have a policy of no guns. You need to leave. And if you don't leave, now you're trespassing and you'd be arrested for trespassing. So they have the ability to enforce that through the law, through law enforcement. You just don't commit a crime by carrying a gun there to begin with. They say, hey, you're carrying a gun here. We don't allow guns. You need to leave. And you leave. Everybody's happy because you're now not trespassing. You don't get arrested for trespassing. And they've enforced their no gun policy. Win-win. But that's how it works, Bonnie, for churches. Bonnie just commented a lot of churches are polling places. Well, that's right. But you only, again, if that church is school property because there's a school on the same property, the exemption that we got passed in 2019 is attending a worship service or a religious ceremony, or if you're an employee or volunteer of the house of worship. Going to vote is not a religious ceremony or a worship service. So if it's school property, that exemption we created in 2019 doesn't cover you. So if it's school property, you need to respect that, not carry a gun onto school property. That's how that works. So I hope that's clear. And in the meantime, I've gone a little past the bottom of the hour, so we're taking a break. Give us a call, 317-239-9393. Right now we're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Tony Katz.
I alphabetized my soundboard. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. F?
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
I have to go to S for Sopranos. Makes sense.
Yeah, I think you got it.
It's so clean now. It's fantastic. Yeah, we have clearly run out of things to talk about. There's nothing else going on in the world.
It's a great world, everything's so.
This show is stupid.
Tony Katz, mornings 6 to 9 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford here. Time again for the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show this coming weekend at the State Fairgrounds, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's never been a more important time to exercise our rights as true Americans. It's the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show. See the best in sporting, hunting, and personal protection gear, plus great displays of Americana. Come see us this weekend at the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show, Friday 2 to 7, Saturday 9 to 6, and Sunday 9 to 4. It's the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show. See you there.
I am obsessed with Ulta Beauty's early Black Friday sale because I can find up to 40% off my beauty favorites each week. Shop deals like Tarte Shape Tape Concealer at 30% off. I'll also be gifting myself. And $15 cleansers from brands like Tula and Philosophy. Plus, up to 40% off select hair tools like the Revlon One Step Blow Dryer. Find the gifts that bring joy to everyone on your list this holiday, especially the gift you give yourself. Hurry in store or place your online pickup order today. Ulta Beauty. The possibilities are beautiful.
AE Ammo is Greenwood's ammunition superstore. The largest variety in training, hunting, and self-defense ammo with the best prices locally guaranteed. Factory new 9mm FMJ ammo starting at $12 per 50-round box. Factory new 50-round boxes, $380 from $14.99 and $45 ACP from $18.99. And with the AE Ammo Customer Rewards Program, start earning points today towards money back to use on future purchases. Shop in-store or online at aeammo.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Fox News, I'm Ted Lindner. President Biden continues to call for a humanitarian pause to allow aid into Gaza. Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs explains why it'd be a huge mistake. He talked about it on the Fox Report.
The Biden administration should not continue to give what they're calling humanitarian aid to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars to Gaza, when actually that will be funneled into Hamas coffers and allow them to continue to proliferate and maybe even expand their efforts to obliterate Israel.
Israel says there will be no ceasefire until the hostages that Hamas continues to hold are released. And thousands of protesters taken to the streets in London today, the fourth consecutive week of demonstrations over the Israel-Hamas war. Protests also taking place in Washington, D.C. and in New York City. America's listening to Fox News.
It's the season of giving, and my friends at Hope Plumbing are joining the fun. Hey, Pat Sullivan here. During the months of November and December, get a free water softener with the purchase of a tankless water heater. You heard that correct. A free water softener with the purchase of a tankless heater, only at Hope Plumbing. Be the most liked family member and give the gift of endless soft and hot water this winter. Visit hopeplumbing.com for all their holiday specials, or give them a call at 641-HOPE.
Denny Smith here for Sundown Gardens in Westfield. Right now, get 50% off all fall decor, including mums, and 30 to 40% off nursery stock at Sundown Gardens. Decorate your yard and home and save big at Sundown Gardens. Make sure you save the date for the Sundown Gardens Holiday Open House. It's coming up Saturday and Sunday, November 18th and 19th. Sundown Gardens at 186th Street and Spring Mill Road in Westfield. SundownGardens.com. That's SundownGardens.com. Tell them Denny Smith said to stop by.
Tiffany absolutely hated her job.
I was living paycheck to paycheck on a dead-end job that I did not like.
She'd been considering a change with My Computer Career.
I was able to qualify for financial aid.
Just 2 nights a week in a classroom and studying from anywhere online opened up a whole new world to her.
I get job offers all the time. IT is practically recession-proof.
Become an IT pro in just months with zero experience at mycomputercareer.edu.
I highly recommend My Computer Career.
It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu. This is one student's experience. Individual results vary.
Hey, this is Spencer Thompson at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus. It's our 96th anniversary, and we're having a sale. Save 50% off Lazy Boy and Smith Brothers, plus 3 years interest-free financing or an extra 10% off for cash. Get a free Yeti cooler or Solo Stove with a Tempur-Pedic purchase and up to 4 years interest-free financing on Tempur-Pedic. It's our 96th anniversary sale only at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus, now through Monday.
He's a Second Amendment attorney. He's an NRA certified firearms instructor. He's the gun guy. Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So I mentioned the Supreme Court is not only going to hear argument and then decide the Raheny case, which is to look at the federal law that says you can't possess a gun if you have a domestic violence order of protection against you. And that's not because, as a Second Amendment advocate, that we want a bunch of violent domestic abusers carrying guns. It's because that there's not sufficient due process in the manner in which these people get deprived of their gun rights. For instance, they've not committed any crime. The burden is only a preponderance of the evidence, which is a civil standard. It's not the same as beyond a reasonable doubt to prove that a person's violent. It's not a criminal proceeding, so you don't get a lawyer appointed to you. And it can happen with no hearing. If you had the opportunity to request a hearing, but you didn't, either because you didn't understand the law or for any other reason, then you've just lost your Second Amendment rights, not having been convicted of any crime. And the issue is going to be, were similar laws in existence and held to be valid, enforceable, and constitutional, either at the time of the ratification of the Second Amendment in 1791 or at the time of the ratification of the 14th Amendment that says the Bill of Rights applies to the states in 1868. Guess when this was passed? That is, law saying that if you're subject to a domestic violence order of protection, you can't possess a gun. 1994. What, 120-some years after the 14th Amendment was ratified. Well over 200 years, or at least a little over 200 years, since the Second Amendment was ratified. So it's going to be tough to prove. It's going to be tough for the government to win. But the challenge is the fact that this Raheny guy is not particularly sympathetic character. He's a bad guy, and most people wouldn't think too much or too badly about him losing his Second Amendment rights because he's a dirtbag and a violent criminal. But he didn't lose his gun rights because he's a violent criminal, because he hadn't been convicted of any felonies or other violent crime. He just got caught up in the process of being subject to a domestic violence order of protection. So anyway, we'll see what they do at the Supreme Court with that. But there's another case that just Friday it was announced the Supreme Court is also going to hear, and that's the Cargill case. And this is a little different in the sense that this deals with the Trump era bump stock ban. And the main issue on this appeal, I'm sure there's going to be an argument that the ban on bump stocks, or for that matter, the ban on machine guns, because that's what bump stocks got caught up in the Trump administration's process through the ATF of banning bump stocks. But we'll talk about whether that's constitutional under the text, history, and tradition test, but separately. It's going to be a question of whether the executive branch, in the form of the president and an executive agency like the ATF, had the authority simply through rulemaking at an executive agency, an administrative agency, and without going through Congress, do they have the ability to pass this law that can put people in prison for possessing a bump stock? Because Congress didn't change the law. That's Congress's job. What's the Constitution say? The legislative authority shall be in Congress.
Congress passes laws. The executive agency is to enforce the law, and the judicial branch is to interpret the law. And its basic separation of powers, it says the executive branch, including through its administrative agency, doesn't pass laws. That's Congress's job. And we're going to take a break here at the 3/4 hour, but we'll come back and we'll talk about what the arguments are. And I'll even explain a little-known rule of statutory construction, which is the rule of lenity. You ever heard that one? Lenity. Kind of sounds like leniency, but that's a completely different word, lenity. Well, we'll talk about that, what that means, and how that applies to this Cargill case that the Supreme Court just accepted on Friday, and it's going to be interesting. And I hope it bears out what I've been saying all along is, look, however you feel about President Trump, he's been a little sketchy on the Second Amendment, and he definitely didn't do us any favors with his bump stock ban because of how he did it. And I said it at the time. I've been saying it ever since. And I really hope the Supreme Court says the same thing, which we'll get into when we come back. In the meantime, we're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
Federal Communications Commission, certain words that we are not allowed to broadcast.
Well, we warned someone about their behavior recently, and they didn't listen to us.
If this were a podcast, we could play all the potty mouth we wanted to, but since it's a broadcast, we cannot. So if you want to get on the air with us, just make sure you keep your language clean, and that's all I'll say about that.
Kendall and Casey, weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Our most popular class, as you often hear me say, is our Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class, which is 5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner. I just taught that today up at Indy Arms, and we're going back to Indy Arms in a couple of months, Saturday, January 6th, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's $50 for an individual. Couples for $95. Again, 5 hours of the most important legal information you need. Where can you and can you not carry a firearm under both state and federal law right here in Indiana? What are the restrictions on transferring a firearm between private individuals? When are you and are you not justified in using force, including deadly force? It's all that and a whole heck of a lot more. 5 hours of the most important information you need, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Join us at Indy Arms, 2550 East 55th Street, coming up on January 6th. You can register right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
Hi, this is Denny Smith for Zerorez, and how about a good carpet cleaning before family and friends start coming over for the holidays? People can see your floors and carpets, and they'll see those stains when they visit, and many times they can even smell that they're not clean because those carpets are the largest air filter in your home. Remember, that's where everybody sneezes, wipes their shoes, and drops food. Call the professionals at Zerorez for a good pre-holiday cleaning. It really is a great time to clean the carpets, and Zerorez has this gotta love it guarantee that makes it easy to get what you pay for. And it's quick and easy to schedule a time online that's convenient for you. Nobody but Zerorez has the patented electrolyzed ZR water that cleans with no soap, no harsh chemicals, and no residue to attract more dirt. They can even clean your ductwork to help you breathe easier. Schedule online today at ZerorezIndy.com and mention WIBC. You'll get 3 rooms of carpet cleaning starting at $100 and $50 off air duct cleaning too. For a smarter, lasting clean and really easy scheduling, visit ZerorezIndy.com.
Everyone's talking about Galaxy Concrete Coatings and their transformation. Like your neighbor Jerry.
When we first started looking for different options, we went to the internet. Really, we did choose Galaxy and definitely happy that we did. We first had our front porch and our pool deck done. Decided we loved it so much, we had them out about 10, 11 months later to finish up and do our back porch.
Commercial or residential, 4 times stronger than epoxy, and it comes with a 15-year warranty.
The crews at Galaxy were great. They actually cared about my property. Very punctual, knowledgeable, and just a great group of workers.
Galaxy Concrete Coatings works for any area like patios, garage floors, driveways, and around pools.
I'm 100% satisfied. It's not slippery and it's not hot. I was very impressed with the product. It's amazing that I don't burn my feet and my 6-year-old doesn't fall.
Click on GalaxyConcreteCoatings.com and remember to like us on Facebook. GalaxyConcreteCoatings.com. We are out of this world.
Guy Relford here. Time again for the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show this coming weekend at the State Fairgrounds, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's never been a more important time to exercise our rights as true Americans. It's the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show. See the best in sporting, hunting, and personal protection gear, plus great displays of Americana. Come see us this weekend at the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show, Friday 2 to 7, Saturday 9 to 6, and Sunday 9 to 4. It's the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show. See you there.
ABC Wednesday, November 8th.
It's country music's biggest night.
The CMA Awards, live. With performances by Luke Bryan, Lainey Wilson, Jelly Roll, and K. Michelle. Old Dominion with Megan Maroney. Harley Pierce featuring Chris Stapleton. Tanya Tucker with Little Big Town. And more.
The best in country music!
Luke Bryan and Peyton Manning host
The CMA Awards live.
Wednesday, November 8th, 8/7 Central on ABC. And stream next day on Hulu.
Head to the contest page at WIBC.com and enter for your chance to win a pair of tickets to see Trans-Siberian Orchestra on December 26th at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Go to WIBC.com for more info.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back for the last segment of The Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. So we're talking about this Cargill case that the Supreme Court just announced on Friday, yesterday, that it's going to take. And this is big news. And it's really interesting because it's a little different than some of the other Supreme Court cases we've seen. And let's talk about what this one's all about. So what about this bump stock ban? First of all, what are bump stocks? And a bump stock, I've always kind of made fun of them. I think they're goofy. If you came to one of my classes or my range when we ran Eagle Creek, and you had a bump stock on your rifle, I'd probably make fun of you because I think they're goofy. You're essentially trading accuracy for rate of fire, which doesn't make sense in a lot of applications. And what it is it's a stock that allows the gun to essentially bounce off your shoulder. And so as you put this thing up to your shoulder and pull the trigger, if you just hold your trigger finger rigid, as the gun bounces back and forth off your shoulder, as the gun stock allows it to do, and as the gun bounces against your trigger finger that you're holding rigid, it allows the gun to shoot very rapidly. And yeah, it can sound like an automatic firearm, like a machine gun, if you know how to operate it. Now, do you need a bump stock to be able to do the same thing? No. I can do it looping my thumb in my belt loop and allowing the gun to bounce back and forth with my trigger finger rigid. I've seen people do it with a rubber band. I mean, there are a lot of other ways to simulate this, but a bump stock allows you to do it. Now, a bump stock was allegedly used by the Las Vegas shooter, and that's still the worst mass shooting we've ever seen in U.S. history. A lot of people were killed. And I still, to this day, I mean, when I heard the audio that were part of some of the videos that were released, but when I heard those gunshots, that did not sound like a bump stock to me. I've heard a lot of bump stocks, being used on guns as they were being fired. And it sounded to me like a belt-fed, fully automatic firearm. It did not sound to me like a AR-15 with a bump stock. And hell, how much information was ever released about the Las Vegas shooting? And I'm not a big conspiracy guy at all. I tend to roll my eyes at most conspiracies, right up until they're proven to be true. And there's something about Las Vegas that's not right. But allegedly, a bump stock or more, or several, were used in the Las Vegas shooting. And obviously that was a horrific event in American history. A lot of people lost their lives. A lot of people were wounded. Now, a lot of examples of incredible heroism and bravery that arose out of that too. But in the meantime, because a bump stock was allegedly used, President Trump came out and said, and bump stocks are gone. I've told ATF, bump stocks are gone. They need to be illegal. So again, hey, I enthusiastically voted for Donald Trump in 2 presidential elections. I did not vote for him in the primary in 2016. I like Ted Cruz because he's a constitutional lawyer. But I enthusiastically voted for Donald Trump in 2 general elections. So I sure as hell did not want to see Hillary elected, and I sure as hell didn't want to see the idiot Biden elected. And so I've supported him with my vote more than once. However, he didn't do us any favor on this bump stock business, because what he did is he established the precedent. He's not the first one to do it in other areas. But certainly on the issue of making a gun or making an accessory illegal through executive action is something that Obama threatened to do the whole 8 years Obama was president, but he never got done. Remember Obama talking about, well, I may not be able to get something through Congress, but I have a phone and a pen. And he kind of smirked at the camera. Remember that quote? What was he talking about? He was talking about doing something through executive agency. And that's what our president, Republican President Trump, turned around and did. And so the ATF, through rulemaking, basically changed the interpretation of the machine gun ban that says that machine guns registered or manufactured or imported after 1986 are illegal in the U.S., and that bump stocks are now considered machine guns. So what's the argument against that? You don't have to dig too deep into the Constitution. Article 1, Section 1 says all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. All legislative power. That's Article 1, Section 1. That's right after the preamble of We the People that I may or may not have tattooed on my body somewhere. So this was clearly legislation that the Trump administration had done through the ATF. The argument is that's illegal, that's unconstitutional. And I love the idea that the Supreme Court is going to take this up and take a hard look at it. In the meantime, that's it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you come back next week. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
When you hear the name Jefferson Shreve, what do you think of? A candidate for mayor? Sure, he's that. But he's also an original supporter of Donald Trump. Jefferson Shreve has been with Trump from the very beginning, even despite Trump lying over 30,000 times, being accused of sexually assaulting 21 women. And Jefferson Shreve never condemned January 6th. Shreve even donated thousands of dollars to Trump's election deniers. It's bad enough that Jefferson Shreve got an A rating from the NRA and wants to ban abortion. But Jefferson Shreve and Donald Trump? That's a combination that's bad for Indianapolis.
This is Joe Hogshead, and I'm asking for your vote so we can continue hiring more police, get guns off the street, and invest in programs that keep kids out of trouble. We've overcome a lot in these last few years. I'm grateful for your support so we can get the job done.
Paid for by Hogshead for Indianapolis.
Where do you feel the pain, guys? Look, sometimes you're getting older, you feel it in the knees or the hips, the shoulder, the back, but you don't have to let it sideline you. And if it is, talk to the professionals at QC Kinetics. Tony Katz here, and QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine, restoring and repairing damaged joint tissue. Surgery is not your only option. Take a breath, take a beat, and talk to QC Kinetics first. With demand so strong, QC Kinetics has added Saturday appointments right here in the Indianapolis area. Do you have arthritic pain or pain from an injury? Call QC Kinetics. Don't just live with it. That's crazy. No drugs, no downtime, no surgery. Call QC Kinetics for a free consultation. QC Kinetics. It's in Eagle Creek, in Greenwood, and now in Carmel, with those Saturday hours at all 3 locations. Call 317-559-PAIN. 317-559-PAIN. QC Kinetics. Eagle Creek, Greenwood, and now in Carmel. 317-559-PAIN.
Some days, my active psoriatic arthritis makes it hard to get in the game. Now, the ball is in my court, thanks to treating my skin and joints with Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150-milligram injection for adults.
Nothing is everything.
Skyrizi helps with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue. For those who also have plaque psoriasis, 90% clearer skin is possible with just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, there's nothing like clearer skin and better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi and visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Broadcasting from the Peterman Brothers Heating, Plumbing, and Electrical Studios, this is Indy's Mobile News, 93 WIBC. WIBC HD1 Indianapolis. The news starts now.
Concerns about an escalating war. I'm Ted Lindner, Fox News. Iran backs Hezbollah, threatening to escalate its involvement in the Israel-Hamas war, with Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah saying yesterday that U.S. warships entered the region. Fox's Steve Harrigan has more on this from northern Israel.
The U.S. Embassy in Beirut is warning Americans once again to leave Lebanon, to leave as soon as possible. This is at least the fourth warning, and they're getting more and more urgent. The embassy there has been the scene of violent protests in the past, the embassy deeming it not safe for the 80,000 or so Americans in country, wanting them to get out while flights are still operating. Part of the reason is that because rockets are being fired from Lebanon into northern Israel. It happens pretty much on a daily basis. Hezbollah fighters firing into Israel. Thousands of Israelis have left their homes in the north.
This all comes as the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has asked Israel for humanitarian pauses. Israel says that's not going to happen until all of the hostages are released. As the Israeli-Hamas war continues and the international community is calling for ceasefire, Russia looking to strengthen their relationship with Hamas.
Russia invited Hamas leaders to Moscow, infuriating Israel, while at the same time, Russia has been helping Hamas avoid Western and U.S. sanctions by funneling millions of dollars of Hamas money through Russian cryptocurrency exchanges. We also know that Russian weapons were used by Hamas in those terror attacks on October the 7th, and Ukraine says that Russia is and actively arming Hamas. And at no point has Russia ever condemned the Hamas attacks as terrorism. Instead, they have been condemning the Israeli bombardments, with Putin saying Israel are the ones now acting like Nazis. Inside Russia, we've also been seeing growing scenes of anti-Semitism.
Fox's Benjamin Hall. America's listening to Fox News.
New from the Fox News Podcast Network.
I'm Emily Campagno, and this is the Fox True Crime Podcast.
And I had nothing to do with her disappearance.
I sit down with the people who lived the nightmares.
I was in shock. I was just devastated.
The investigators who tirelessly worked on the case.
And I really hope that they can catch this guy.
Bringing you closer to the story than you ever thought possible.
Listen and follow now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
These are the stories that keep you up at night.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Listen to the all-new Bret Baier podcast featuring Common Ground, talking to lawmakers weekly from opposite sides of the political spectrum about the issues of the day and how Americans can find common ground in a politicized world.
That's just not